Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
All right, little Saturday check-down episode here of Purple Daily. And I don't know, maybe we're just nerds when it comes to like the NFL and NFL finances, but the Forbes team valuations list came out. The value and the revenue, the operating income of all 32 teams in the NFL. We're also celebrating the 20th year of, or the 20th anniversary, I guess, of Wilf ownership. So we're going to tell you and remind you how much the Wilfs bought this team for and how much, as of a couple days ago, the team is now worth. Let's just say business is good in the National Football League. Business is good at MSP Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning, too. They're helping a lot of people, Judd.
Oh, no question about it. And you know why? Because they are not just a locally owned company for more than 100 years, but also trustworthy. And how do I know? Because I've used them, and they do outstanding work. In fact, you know, Sports Dad doesn't allow a lot of people in his house, but when MSP Plumbing, Heating, and Air, they knock on the door, guess who lets them in? That's right, I do, because they do such good work. Now, we've been talking about AC now for a few months, the HVAC, all that good stuff, but let's talk about the fact that, you know what? Right around the corner, it's going to start to get cold. And here's the question. Is your furnace working at maximum capacity? Do you have a furnace that could start for you on the opening day when it gets cold? Because if you don't, MSP Plumbing, Heating, and Air, call them now, 651-615-4292, or check out their website, callmsp.com, to make sure that you have a furnace that is ready to go.
That's right. Also, a reminder, in a few days here is our next Purple Daily Unplugged event at Running Aces on Thursday, September 4th. So we love these unplugged events. We started doing these a little over a year ago, where we gather a bunch of Vikings fans and Purple Daily listeners and viewers. We do a little casual podcasting, and in this case, we're going to preview the season. But it's Thursday, September 4th. It's free to attend at Running Aces, but we do request that you RSVP because there is a limit on how many people can be there. So to RSVP, go to purpledaily.com/unplugged. purpledaily.com/unplugged. Everyone in attendance gets a $10 gaming voucher for Running Aces, $15 in food and beverage, a horse racing program, and a deck of playing cards. So you got to attend to receive those items. Obviously, Judd's not going to mail them to you.
Yeah, and I'm not going to drive to your house for sure. That's another thing.
No. Check-ins at 5:30 on Thursday, and the podcast starts at 6:30. Plus, it's the first football game of the season, so we can all watch on the renovated. They have a 53-foot LED, continuous LED screen for football games.
I'm excited to see that room.
Yeah,
that room looks really, really cool.
As a guy that spent a lot of time at Running Aces back in my poker days, love that place. It's just north of the Metro on 35. So let's all gather on Thursday, purpledaily.com/unplugged. Two headlines before we get into the Viking specific stuff here on this Forbes team valuations report. Mm-hmm. The least valuable NFL franchise is the Cincinnati Bengals, which is not super shocking, kind of a smaller market, poorly run, poorly rated by the NFL Players Association.
Yep.
Their brand is Joe Burrow, basically, right?
Yep.
So the least valuable team, the Bengals, is worth $5.2 billion and had an operating income, I think this is their net income, of $50 million. So wrap your head around that. What's the Twins were trying to sell in Major League Baseball for like $1.7 billion and couldn't get a taker.
Right. But if you look at it, so because the Packers, much to my dismay, because we have to hear about it constantly, are publicly owned, you see what each team gets.
Now they're actually owned by Micah Parsons. I'm not sure.
That's true, too. That's a good point, too. But you see what the Packers get as far as all of the splits, right? And you look at what they get just yearly for TV. I mean, that's driving this entire thing. It's incredible. Like, you can be poorly owned, play in now a bit of an aging stadium, practice below a bridge, and you're still worth billions of dollars because of all the TV revenue that comes in, which again, to your point, Phil, that's why baseball wants to split their pie up, because you see how the league absolutely thrives because of these TV deals.
The average NFL team is worth $7.1 billion,
Yep.
which is year over year jump, 25% increase in NFL team values year over year.
Right.
The Dallas Cowboys, who haven't been to a Super Bowl, they haven't been to an NFC championship game in almost 30 years, but they just had a big Netflix series, and Jerry Jones does a good job of keeping the controversy flowing.
Yep.
The Dallas Cowboys are the most valuable NFL franchise at $13 billion. That's a 30% year over year increase for America's team that's mostly been America's laughingstock for however many years. The Minnesota Vikings, as great of a brand as they are, as competitive as they've been, as well run, well regarded by the NFL Players Association, one of the best stadiums in the world. Like, the Vikings have a lot of things going for them as a franchise and a brand, right? Mm-hmm. They're still just 21st on the team valuations list at only $6.25 billion. And that's the crazy thing. The Wilfs bought this team in 2005, right, Judd? That's when the transaction was finalized.
Yeah, May
05.
The spring of 2005.
So 20 years of Wilf ownership. They bought the team for $600 million.
Right.
Their revenue was $609 million last year, and the valuation, like I said, is $6.25 billion. That's a nice little 20-year ROI on the Minnesota Viking for commercial and residential real estate investors.
Yep.
That's a nice little ROI on your investment there.
Well, and it's funny because there's a couple of things here. First of all, and I have no idea who's right here, but teams always claim that these valuations are off. Okay, so they could be worth more. Who knows?
But it's not that far. It's not like they're worth $2 billion, right? So
No. But I'm just. It's funny because I would love to know what teams who probably cook the books a little bit more in a different way than Forbes does for them. But the other thing too is, like, if you look at the Vikings and the Wilfs, so the Vikings were sort of Bengals-like. In fact, they were at one point not as bad a team, but when you look at their business operation at one point, it was very Bengals-like. They were at a dilapidated facility in Eden Prairie, right? That was sort of a joke.
Yeah.
They played in the Metrodome, which was, sorry, all due respect to the Metrodome fans, sort of a joke. And I feel like the Wilfs now, and granted, they get help, so I'm not saying that they've done this by themselves, but I feel like the Wilfs have, I'm trying to think of, can you maximize, other than the natural rise in price, which happens for all these teams, can you maximize the Vikings more? Because they've got the beautiful training facility in Egan. You've got the stadium, which is great. So how do you jack this up to get the Vikings to say 15th on this list?
I love that question. I'm going to answer it, but then I'm actually going to counter my own answer with evidence from this list. Okay, so logically, all the good things about the Vikings that we just mentioned. Can you make them even more valuable? Well, right. Yeah, like if J.J. McCarthy becomes this incredible face of the team, face of the league type quarterback, which whatever the percentage chance of that happening is, not zero, and they start winning Super Bowls, the most competitive non-Super Bowl winning franchise in NFL history, and maybe the most heartbroken franchise in NFL history, kind of the Chicago Cubs in some ways of the NFL. The Cubs went 108 years before they won their next World Series, 1908 to 2016. But it's this team that keeps climbing up the mountain and then getting tossed back down to the bottom, right? If they can get over the hump and they win 2 Super Bowls in 3 years and now they're more of a national brand, yes, then their valuation would probably go up. But I'm going to counter that by saying the team right behind the Vikings on this list at number 22 is the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, that's interesting.
How is that possible?
Well, that's what I'm curious about, because I agree. If the Vikings went on a great run, it might alter where they rank on that list. I was trying to think just from like a business operation standpoint, a marketing standpoint. It feels like the Vikings have maximized, and they didn't for a long time, that they've maximized all of those things. They've got a great practice facility, a great stadium. I feel like they're marketed really, really well. I feel like, as this show has proven, their following goes far outside this state. And in fact, it goes now, they've done a great job in Europe. So, like, there's Vikings fans everywhere. And you're still in what, 21st place? What's their place there? So
21st.
It's just sort of interesting, but I just found this. So from the Packers valuation that they have to release in 2024, each team received approximately from television income $432.6 million. So that's what the league brings in as a whole for TV sponsorships and licensing.
And that is, yeah, so it's $440 million every team, national media, sponsorship, merchandise, and then a league-wide ticket revenue pool. But it does not include like local there's other money too that comes in, local sponsorships.
Right. Oh yeah.
Also, doesn't that not count like most of the Lambeau Field ticket revenue? There's some league-wide ticket revenue. I guess we'd have to dig deeper on how some of that is split up, but but even like right away there, every team is just guaranteed $440 million. And then there's other revenue that comes in on top of that. And what's the salary cap right now? $280 million is the salary cap.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that range. So the salary, you cannot spend more than $300 million to the cap in a league that writes you a check for $450 million with all the national TV and merchandising sponsorship revenue that comes in.
And you're right. That does not include like what you can get locally, which if you're like the Giants, the Rams are high. You know, how much did Stan Kroenke jack the Rams value up by going from St. Louis to Los Angeles? I think they're now second on that list. The Cowboys thing, so as screwed up as the Cowboys are, they have not been to an NFC Championship game since 1996 or something like that. Mm-hmm. Here's my question. What is the incentive? So like Jerry Jones should step down. Like it's a gong show. But what's the incentive for him or his family to do that when this team is still the king of probably like the sports hill, certainly in this country? So it's like, oh, Jerry, you don't win Super Bowls, you screw up the team, you trade Micah Parsons seemingly out of spite to a rival of the Vikings. And then he's like, oh, yeah, that's true. I'm doing a terrible job. Oh, here's the valuation of my team.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, we kind of touched on this, I think, on O-line committee last week, that Jerry Jones is playing a different game in terms of the measurable goal than people think he's playing. Yes. People think, like Micah Parsons getting traded, for example, people think, well, that's a bad football trade. Why would you trade a 26-year-old future Hall of Fame edge rusher when he's going to be awesome for like 4 or 5 more years? Wouldn't you pay him and figure out the rest of your team? Well, from a wins and losses standpoint, yeah, like that's probably the right move. But from a headlines, splashiness, people talk about the brand, people get emotional standpoint, trading Micah Parsons is electric. And he said so much at the Netflix red carpet thing last week where he basically talked about, he didn't talk about winning and losing. He talked about controversy evokes emotion, and it's my job to stoke those flames and make sure and if people aren't talking about us, I will do something to make sure they talk about us. That's how you become a $13 billion NFL franchise, I guess.
Every morning that Jerry Jones wakes up and flips on Get Up on ESPN with Greeny and the boys, and that the Cowboys are the lead, which they are, it feels like most days, Jerry Jones wins.
Yeah.
How about them Cowboys?
Yeah, man. And if you're the Vikings operate much more under the radar, much more understated, much more humbly, and they have been more successful. They win a lot more games and have been now neither team has won a championship in the last 30 years, but the Vikings have been a more successful franchise. But as a fan, I think you want your team to operate more like the Vikings. But if you're a billionaire looking to get richer, well, the Cowboys have presented a pretty compelling case, not just in the NFL, but maybe across other sports too.
It's crazy.
So, just real quick, the rest of the list here, not all 32, but number 1, Cowboys. 13 billion. Rams, 10.5 billion. Giants, 10 billion. Patriots still clinging to the 20 years of dynasty and Brady and Belichick at 9 billion. Niners, 8.5. Eagles, 8.3. Bears, 8.2 billion. Third largest market.
Right.
Big brand.
Right.
Jets, 8.1 billion. New York market. The Vegas Raiders at 7.7 billion. And then the Commanders rounded out at 10. So.
And the Packers are right ahead or behind the Vikings, right? I think they're ahead.
They're a little ahead. They're 15th at 6.6 billion. Vikings are 6.2 billion. So there you go. And again, the Wilfs bought this team for $600 million 20 years ago, and it's now worth $6.2 billion.
And it's not factored in, but how much also do the Wilfs have revenue possibilities because of the Vikings and like the real estate out there? Because I think that they own, beyond their facility in Egan, I think that they own a bunch of property as well there. So, and that's not even part of the equation, I'm sure. But like the offshoot of you are a real estate guy or a family, and now you've got this football team, and now you're getting more and more. So it's worked out pretty well. It's worked out pretty well. This is why Red tried for a while to get Red actually, was trying to get a stadium and finally bailed. And thank God he didn't try and move the team. Yeah. But the team, you knew the family or you knew the ownership group that finally got the stadium was going to absolutely do great. And the Wilfs have proven that they did.
Yeah, it's interesting. Some of the best owners are not near the top of this list. Like Arthur Blank has been regarded as a good owner. They went to a Super Bowl. They've had a couple nice runs with Atlanta. The Wilfs are regarded as great owners. The Hunt family for generations, although the facilities there need some upgrades in Kansas City. But they generally, that ownership puts out competitive team after competitive team for decades.
Yep.
And there's some others that the Bisciotti, Steve Bisciotti with the Ravens, they're 23rd. Some of it's market size, but yeah. All right. Congratulations to the Wilfs.
It's good to own the Vikings. No matter where you rank on that list, it's good to own the Vikings.
Amen. All right, there's your Saturday checkdown episode of Purple Daily. So yeah, coming up the rest of the week here. I mean, we have to wait till Monday night, a week from Monday for the Vikings, but Judd and I are going to hit you guys with a Purple Daily NFL Takes episode on Sunday where we rank and tier all 32 teams. So where do the Vikings fall on that list? And we'll sort through that. Monday, we're going to go through some pressing questions about the 2025 season. And then Tuesday, we will pick the schedule for the final time before the Viking season.
Win.
And we're off to the races.
Win.
We should do it at the State Fair next year and just all pick 17-0 just for the cheap crowd pop. All right, for the Sports Dad, for Dex, I'm Phil. It's Purple Daily. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die. See ya.